Blog Talk Radio.
Down to sleep, lay me down. I pray my soul is mine to keep, my soul, and never step outside this bed, never into all the evil, now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
Be here.
Is about to begin, sir.
The calling hours.
But there's no more room in hell. The dead walk here.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
To another episode of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Horror Society Radio. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your head undertaker, the dead man Michael Jones of HorrorSociety.com and Living Dead magazine. I hope everyone is well this evening because we're going to have an excellent episode. On episode 73 of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast, we will be talking with actress, producer, director, and Scream Queen, the original Gata, Monique Dupree. That's right, the same Monique Dupree that is part of horror royalty as far as I'm concerned. Her brother Tony Todd, of course, is in the genre as well. But speaking of that, we're going to be talking about her genre work this evening, including such titles as Bachelor Party and the Bungalow of the Damned, Timo Rose's The Beast, Spirit, Skeleton Key 3, The Oregon Trail, Sheriff Tom versus the Zombies, Plan 9, and some of her upcoming projects as well, such as Scream Queen Campfire, Shadowhunters, Devilspeak and Sex, Blood and Fairytales. In addition to that, we're also going to be talking some pro wrestling because I think Monique is one of the few people out there that could actually go toe-to-toe with me when it comes to talking about professional wrestling. All of that's going to happen at about 8:30 p.m. this evening. In addition to all of that, in our digital dismemberment spotlights tonight, we are going to be reviewing Scream Factory's special edition Blu-ray release of Ghost Town, as well as Lionsgate Entertainment's Blu-ray release of High Tension. We will also be featuring Cattle Decapitation and songs from their upcoming CD, The Anthropocene Extinction, in our Metal Blade Spotlight. And as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and get into a little bit about that Cattle Decapitation. With 2012's Monolith of Inhumanity, Ryan, guitarist Josh Elmore, bassist Derek Engeman, and drummer Dave McGraw delivered a sledgehammer blow, maintaining their position as the most violent end of the death metal spectrum, yet expanding their sound. Allowing a little more melody in without losing any of their intensity. As always, tied together by a central concept, Ryan's bleak lyrics bluntly illustrated the fate of the human race if allowed to continue pillaging and destroying the planet. With the Anthropocene extinction, he extrapolates on this subject, looking back at the world in the aftermath of such ecological and environmental devastation, with its focus largely centered on the Pacific Ocean. The Anthropocene era is the time period where humankind has had the most profound negative effect on the Earth and its ecosystems, and the record focuses on how we have managed to bring that era to an end. From even before the Industrial Revolution and into the present day, humankind's inexhaustible need for resources and explosive population growth have accelerated us towards a future world where we will have either consumed or polluted ourselves out of existence. When you look at the oceans, the footprints we have left comes in the form of all the junk and plastic that has made it out there because we let that happen, and the effect that has. Because when you start breaking down ecosystems, it's a domino effect and will one day end up doing us in. The Anthropocene extinction is set in the world that we destroyed, and lyrically, it's certainly the most depressing record I've ever written. So without further ado, let's do some world podcast premiere music from Cattle Decapitation, the brand new CD, The Anthropocene Extinction. The name of the song is Manufactured Extinct. welcome back. You just heard world podcast exclusive music from Cattle Decapitation. The name of the CD was The Anthropocene Extinction. The name of the song was Manufactured Extinct. We will hear 2 more songs from this new CD throughout the show. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our first digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we are going to be covering Lionsgate Entertainment's Blu-ray release, the unrated Blu-ray release of Alex Aja's High Tension, a.k.a. Switchblade Romance. This has been one of my favorite films for several years now. I never quite understood why a lot of people really didn't get into this film, why so many people hated on the film. I thought it was a really nice, unique twist on both a psychological thriller and the slasher film. A lot of people like to take this into the torture porn section of the genre, noting particularly the goriness of the film. But it's funny, and we'll talk about it in a few moments, the director talks about he really doesn't consider the film to be a gore film. While there are certainly bloody and horrific elements to it, you know, you can be the judge of that. But Marie and Alexia are classmates and best friends. Hoping to prepare for their college exams in peace and quiet, they decide to spend a weekend in the country at Alexia's parents' secluded farmhouse. But in the dead of night, a stranger knocks on the front door, and with the first swing of his knife, the girls' idyllic weekend turns into an endless night of horror. Again, like I said, this is certainly one of my genre favorites that have been out in the last 15 years. I really feel like there's a nice wealth of content with this film, and it really gets across what it is. It's a psychological slasher film that has a particularly nasty little twist when you get to it. One of the things I want to point out straight out the gate is the effects artist for this film is none other than the amazing artist that is Gianotto De Rossi. Many of you listen to the show should recognize that name, not only for him being one of my favorite effects artists, but he has done so much work in the industry, in particular a lot of work with Lucio Fulci. So to give you the plot outline a little bit, when the film starts, you see a young woman in a hospital gown, and as the camera pans up over her back, you can see various wounds and staples in her back. It looks like she's been messed up pretty badly. You then see a young lady running through the woods and into a road. A car is coming by, and she stops it, screaming, begging for help. And you can see a large wound on her stomach. The film cuts back to 2 young ladies in a car, and it's Marie and Alexia. And they're heading to Alex's parents' house for the weekend to study. And there's a little conversation between the 2 of them about, you know, Mary going and hanging out with a man the previous night, and Alex being a little drunk. You know, but that settles down, and you see the farmhouse where their parents live, and it's out in a secluded part of France. And you see the mother and the father and her little brother and their dog Hendrix. Off in the background, you see a large old rusted truck, and there appears to be a gentleman getting a sexual favor in the truck, and as he finishes, he tosses a severed head out of the window. Well, Alex and Marie get to her parents' house, and it's later at night. Little brother has already fallen asleep, and Alex's father answers the door. And he mentions to Mary how nice it is to actually see her in person instead of seeing a picture. Her and Mary eat Alex and Mary eat dinner, and they go to bed. And as Mary is laying in bed, she hears the doorbell ring, and she hears Alex's father go down to answer it. Well, when he opens the door, he sees a gentleman outside, and the gentleman slashes his face with a straight razor. He falls back into the house, and the man lets himself in. The large dog, and I think it's a Saint Bernard, attacks the gentleman, but he winds up killing and gutting the dog. Alex's father tries to get up the stairs, but sorry about that. I don't know why we dropped off. But to continue what I was saying, the father's head is decapitated when the killer takes a bookcase and basically severs his head. The sound of what's going on wakes up Alex's mother, and she finds her husband dead on the stairs, and she winds up being approached by the killer as well. Mary hears the mother screaming and stashes herself under the bed and makes it look like that no one is staying in the room. The killer walks through the house and checks Mary's room, but he doesn't find her there. So the killer goes back down through the house to take care of the rest of the family. Mary sneaks downstairs and finds out that Alex has been chained to her bed by the killer. She didn't hear anything because she had earplugs in. Mary tells her that she's going to find help and runs to the parents' room to find the phone, but can't find it. She hears the killer coming back up the stairs, so she hides in the closet. And she sees Alex's mother trying to get to the closet, and the killer snatches her from behind and viciously, with the same straight razor, slits her throat wide open, blood just spraying everywhere. The little brother hears everything and runs from the house into a cornfield and is chased by the killer. Mary goes back to try and release Alex again, and she sees the young boy shot to death with a shotgun by the killer in the cornfield. Mary again tries to free Alex, but the killer comes back. So she sneaks into the kitchen and grabs a large butcher knife. The killer drags Alex to the truck, and Mary manages to sneak into the truck with the butcher knife and hides there with Alex. And they drive off. Well, the killer has to stop and get gas. And Mary gives Alex the knife, and she manages to sneak out of the truck and runs into the gas station before the killer can see her. And she tells the attendant, please call the police. And then she tries to hide in the store. Well, the killer walks into the gas station, and apparently he's familiar with the attendant. It's a regular gas station that he goes to. And they have a small bit of discussion, and the killer asks him to get a bottle of booze for him from the lock case. Well, when he goes over to the lock case and turns around, he winds up getting it in the chest with an axe from the killer. And the killer seems to think that he was looking at someone or something in the store, so he goes through the store trying to find Alex, or Marie. And she manages to sneak out to the bathrooms, and the killer goes through, but he can't seem to find her. He starts to leave, and Mary finds the phone and calls the cops, but she doesn't know the location of where she's at. So she winds up yelling at the cops, finds a gun that the clerk had in the store and his car keys, and takes off in pursuit of the truck. Well, she follows him, and the truck turns off of the main road down into a wooded area. She follows after him and winds up being chased after the killer finds out that she's there. There's a horrific car crash, and she escapes out into what looks like a vineyard, and she hides in a greenhouse. Well, the killer comes out, tricks her out, and almost suffocates her with plastic. She winds up beating him violently in the head with a post wrapped in barbed wire, thinking that he's dead. She goes back and lets Alex out. Alex is terrified at this point, and after Mary lets her loose, we start to see flashbacks. The police investigate the gas station and see the videotapes of the murder, and it turns out the tape shows Mary murdering the store clerk. And then we see flashbacks to how the family members were murdered. And, of course, Mary winds up being the murderer. She's very delusional, and she's in love with Alex. Well, Alex tries to fend her off and winds up slashing her in the face with the kitchen knife and stabs her in the stomach and runs through the woods. Then we see the actual event that the girl we saw stopping the car in the beginning of the movie was not Mary, but was Alex. They get in the car, but the car won't go anywhere. Well, when we go back to Mary, it flashes back to the guy, and he gets a masonry saw out of the truck and chases after Alex. Jumps on top of the car, and in one of the most gruesome and amazing scenes I've ever seen, she busts through the windshield and basically saws the driver up with the masonry saw, blood and gore just flying everywhere. Alex manages to get out of the car, but winds up cutting her Achilles on a piece of glass, and she winds up stabbing Alex in the shoulder with like a crowbar. The film ends basically with Mary in the hospital handcuffed, and Alex looking through one-way glass, wondering if Alex can see her. She's told no, and then all of a sudden, Mary turns and almost like she sees Alex through the mirror. Again, I thought it was a really well-done film. I thought the effects were absolutely amazing. Thought it was a well-ratcheted and tension-filled movie, no pun intended. The Lionsgate release features the original French-language director's cut and the U.S. English dubbed version. You have commentary with Alexandre Aja and Gregory Levasseur. You have selected scene commentary with Aja and Cecil de France. There's a short little featurette, Hot Whore, Making of High Tension, a building tension featurette. There's a small piece on Gianotto de Rossi, The Truth, the Madness, and the Magic. The Blu-ray is a 1080p high-definition widescreen presentation. French 7.1 DTS HD Master Audio, English 5.1 DTS HD Master Audio. There are English and Spanish subtitles. And again, absolutely stunning movie. One of the better releases from Lionsgate Films. I would give the movie 4.5 out of 5 stars. Again, I consider this to be a modern-day classic. There's a lot to really like about this film. As far as the special features and everything go, I give the disc an 8 out of 10. The only complaint that I have is I wish some of the special features were a little bit longer. You should be able to head to your local big box store and pick this up. Amazon.com, eBay. You might even be able to get this one on iTunes. So make sure, go out and pick up your copy of High Tension. Coming up in 5 minutes, we're going to have our feature interview with our guest this evening, Scream Queen, the original Gata, Monique Dupree. But before that, we're going to go into our second Metal Blade Spotlight. Once again, from Cattle Decapitation and the Anthropocene Extinction, the name of the song is Plagueborn.
God,
Once again, world podcast exclusive music from Cattle Decapitation. The CD is The Anthropocene Extinction. The name of the song was Plagueborn. In a moment, we are going to be joined by none other than Scream Queen, the original Gata, Monique Dupree. To give you a little bit of background information on Monique, who really, in my opinion, is one of the trend-setting scream queens and just actresses in general out there today. She is a Newark, New Jersey native, and she's done a lot of independent horror films. She's done fetish, comic book, catalog, and alternative modeling, local and national reality television, and has stepped over and done some mainstream stuff as well. In addition to being an actress, she's also a producer, director, and I would certainly say model, because I have certainly featured Monique in several series on Horse Society. She was part of my Deadly Beauty series, and I've done written interviews with her before. She's definitely a woman of many talents and many skills. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to pick her brain to talk about her film work, her upcoming directorial debuts, Tony Todd being her brother, how that influenced her work and how she got into the genre. And the thing that I'm really looking forward to, and this may sound funny, but, those of you that listen to the show know how much of a pro wrestling fan I am. I think Monique is just as big a pro wrestling fan as I am, and there's a lot of topics to certainly cover when it comes to pro wrestling. I'm definitely going to get her take on what she thinks about The Undertaker coming back and facing off with Brock Lesnar at the upcoming SummerSlam, the stuff that she's done with Tommy Dreamer, former ECW alum, in his House of Hardcore Wrestling, and of course the tragic passing very recently of Rowdy Roddy Piper. So I think those are all going to be really fun and interesting subjects to talk about with her. Like I said, I don't feel that there are very many people that come on the show that can talk as much wrestling as I can. So it's really going to be nice to hear all of the interesting things that she has to say about all of that. And as a matter of fact, I do believe that the original Gata has joined me now. Monique, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, it's no problem. I was telling all the listeners, if you and I go back a couple of years, with interviews on Horse Society, and you were one of the first women to be a part of the Deadly Beauty series that I do. So it's a great honor to have you on to talk about all of your work and everything that you do.
Oh, I truly appreciate it. I don't even know why I haven't been on sooner. I'm glad that we corrected that problem.
Oh, so am I. It's when the podcast first started, it was inundated by people, and I try not to bother people when I see that they're working on projects, and you've certainly been busy over the last year and a half, to say the least.
Yeah.
To even wonder where to start. Let's just break into it. What first got you into the industry? What appeals to you about the horror genre?
That's a lot. Well, I've always been into the entertainment industry. Like I've always wanted to entertain since as far back as I can remember. I had this pull towards the horror genre, which is going to sound really silly, but it was mostly because I wasn't allowed as a child to watch anything that seemed remotely scary, because I was raised by my grandmother and my great-grandmother, and they thought that it would give me nightmares. So it was one of those things, much like comedy, like Eddie Murphy's comedy and Richard Pryor. I was banned from all of that stuff. So there was actually more of an attraction to it. But then I started catching up on movies and watching, even still when I wasn't allowed to, but, I was a little bit older, so I was able to sneak and watch anyway. And I was like, I wanted to be one of these people in the movie. And it was like, I don't know, it was just some kind of pull that I had towards the genre. And I also, like, I love playing the bad guy. I think I knew that before I actually had a chance to do it. I always rooted for the bad guy. And is that wrong to say? Because I really did.
Oh, no, I'm very much the same way. I always cheer for the bad guy.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, please don't lose, please don't die, which most times that's what happens, good prevails over evil and all of that. I'm like, can't evil just take this one this time until next time, because it's going to be a next time. So.
Oh, always.
So yeah, I just always had a love for the genre itself. So, when I actually fell into the genre, because as much as I had tried to get involved, I was not getting any work, but I kind of, fell into it, and I'm so blessed that happened, because it's my favorite genre.
Now, and we're certainly not, I won't dwell on this, but, an interesting aspect is, and you and I have kind of talked about this when I've interviewed you before. You had said that, you're growing up, you weren't allowed to watch a lot of that and things like that. But, of course, you have a very special relationship with Tony Todd.
Right.
How much of an influence was he on your career? And knowing him, with the close family relationship that you guys have, of course, do you feel like that helped you when you got into the industry? Did he advise you on getting into it?
Well, no, he didn't advise me, on getting into it. And Tony's very much I feel like him being involved in the genre, it was somewhat of an influence. However, he's the type of person that he wants to see you work for what it is that you want. So if you say this is what I want, he wants you to show that that's what you want. Like, he doesn't do handouts and stuff like that. And, I am much better of a person for it, but he's always there for advice or, whatever I need. And I feel like he's really helped steer me in a lot of the right directions a lot of the times when I just didn't know, where to go and what to do. Like he told me recently, sis, it's time for you to, take it to the next level. You've been doing all of these projects. You've been out there for a while. You got to get it to the next level. My issue had always been I would start rolling, then I would get pregnant. It's like, oh, okay. So I might be out of work for a little while, even though just about every pregnancy I did at least 1 to 2, I would say 1 to 2 film projects or, something related, photo shoots, wrestling now, just so much. But he's been a great guide for me with the convention circuit, starting early on, and just acting in general, not even just the genre, to help me become a better performer each and every time. He gives me stuff to read. He tells me, go out, find this, study it, study your craft, sleep with your craft. So I've learned so much from him, and, the information is there. He gives it to anybody that really, truly asks and is hungry for it. It's just up to you to take the information and do something positive with it. I'm a worker bee. I work. I don't care how much I have to do or how much I have to put in. I'm willing to put in that work, to get where I want to be.
Oh, and there's absolutely no doubt about that. Anyone that follows you on Facebook, I'd have to say out of all of the actors and actresses and directors that I'm friends with and follow on Facebook, I probably get more updates from you about your work, and I mean that's a good thing, because it's nice to see that you're so open about your work and everything that you do, and I think that's something great for the fans to see, just how hardworking you actually are.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, and sometimes I get crap for it, but I feel like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I like to connect with my fan base. I like to, I had somebody on Instagram, last week say, why do you reply to people? And then I go, well, why not? I may not be able to reply to everybody because I don't always see, all my notifications and stuff like that. But, who am I to say, to me, who am I to say, well, I'm just not going to reply because, I'm an actress. No,
right.
I like to be accessible in that manner. A lot of women ask me about, my weight loss and my, yo-yoing with the babies and stuff like that. So I figure if I post stuff, and I do sometimes post stuff that I eat, but it's not one of those things where it's look what I had for dinner. It's when people inquire about things, instead of me having to send all of these individual messages, I just put it out there. Go, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing this, and then if they have additional questions and I can help, I try my best to help. So that, the notifications, it comes from everywhere because I'm all over the place between, I'm a bit of a fitness junkie now, and wrestling and acting and doing photo shoots again and just trying to manage so much. It gets hard. So, I'm always trying to update a little bit of everything.
Since you brought up the wrestling, I wanted to talk about that a little bit later, but I can't help myself because one of the things that really excited me is when I contacted you about being on the show, you asked me, can we talk pro wrestling? And I was like, hell yes, we can talk pro wrestling.
Well,
anyone that listens to the show knows, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. My nickname, the Dead Man, obviously comes from The Undertaker, things like that. And let's talk pro wrestling for a few minutes here. First of all, sadly, just the other day, we lost one of the true icons of pro wrestling with the passing of Roddy Piper. As a huge pro wrestling fan yourself, can you talk about what kind of impact that had on you, and what were some of your fonder memories of Piper, entertaining us over the years?
Well, first of all, when I first found out, because you guys may or may not know that my daughter's training to be a wrestler. And she trains at Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
In Poughkeepsie, New York. When I found out, I was devastated, but I was numb because he was one of the first wrestlers that I had ever connected with, personally, and that was just through the convention circuit. I met him at a convention, and we talked. We sat down and talked about cooking. I talked about Monet for an endless amount of time, and before we were done, he said, let me give your daughter an autograph because she seems to be the light in your life. And, he autographed, take care of mom, to her. And every time I saw him, he was always concerned, are you taking care of yourself? And I'm like, you're the one with the broken neck again. Are you taking care of yourself? So a lot of my, I love, he entertained us. He entertained everybody. He was electrifying. His smile could brighten up a room. But my fondest memories are those times that we just talked about whatever. It could be wrestling. It could be cooking. It could be how the day is going. It can be how did you injure your neck again? Those are my fondest memories, and that's why I was so devastated because my daughter always wanted to meet him, and when she found out, she cried for so long. I had to be the tough mom and couldn't allow myself to grieve about it, you know?
Right. And you're not the only person I've heard about what a great person he was, you know, outside of wrestling. You know, a lot of fans online and people that have worked with him in the industry, you know, because he did his fair share of genre work as well.
Absolutely.
Talk about how nice he was to.
Absolutely. He was just the greatest guy. And like I said, you know, he always stuck out in my head no matter what, because, you know, he was the first pro wrestler that I met, and then Mick Foley, you know, was the second, and, you know, we're still good friends to this day. Another amazing guy, and it's just, it just really hurt me. I really thought it was a joke at first, to be honest with you. I just started looking it up everywhere, and then as the reports came in and I saw that it was, you know, facts, because, you know, a lot of the times I'll text a couple of the wrestlers and go, is this true? Because, you know, people will kill people off on the internet willy-nilly. So I needed to make sure, because that really that hurt. It still does. It's gonna be that way for quite some time. We truly lost just a great guy, period. Even beyond, you know, him being an entertainer, just a great man we lost.
Sorry about that. I don't know why the phone dropped off, Monique, but
okay.
But what I was saying, okay, I'm here. I'm sorry. I don't know why the phone dropped off, but it did. But like I was saying, you know, people talk about how nice he is and everything, and you had mentioned, you know, your daughter training with Tommy Dreamer and his House of Hardcore, and he's another guy that I've always heard fantastic things about. Kind of talk about how you first met Tommy Dreamer and how that eventually led to your daughter training with him.
Well, that's interesting. Me and my daughter, we still do. We try to hit as many WrestleManias as possible. We were, I forget which number, we were at WrestleMania in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And we try to do the whole everything that we could possibly do. So they had like a sit with the wrestlers brunch type of thing. I think it was through WrestleCon, but I'm not entirely sure. In any event, that's where we first met Tommy. So we met him together. There was just so many people there, and we weren't even sitting at his table, but he came over and he sat down and he talked to us, and, you know, Monet asked for a picture, and he was like a really funny guy. He still is. And we befriended him then. Then I hadn't heard from him for a while, and then I saw a show, you know, that had popped up or what have you, and contacted him about coming to the show. I started going to the shows, you know, and he started seeing that I was an entertainer and, you know, all of that different kind of stuff. And, like, we quickly became friends. We became good friends. And, you know, I think it's just pretty cool because he's straight up. I'm straight up. So it's just a cool friendship, you know. And then he started talking about House of Hardcore. The first House of Hardcore, I was pregnant, and he invited us out. So my whole family came out. Well, you know, me and my daughter, my husband, there was somebody else there. But we came out to the show, and when I saw that show, let me tell you, it reignited my love for wrestling all over again, because there became a point in time where I fell off of it for a while, you know, because seriously, it wasn't, you know, turning on the TV, it wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't the old school wrestling that I used to love and connect with. So I felt like I had no reason, and I had no idea that the indie scene was as big as it was. I was very naive to that. So then I went to his show, and then with him, I started traveling with him to some of the indie shows, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is some of the stuff, some of these shows should be on TV. Like, Straight up. You know, and, you know, you have so much amazing talent in a lot of these places. And, you know, he just opened up a whole new world for me. And then I started to love wrestling again because I really didn't for quite some time. You know, I appreciated the wrestlers who wrestled and put their bodies on the line all the time for our entertainment. But what we were getting, to me, wasn't entertaining, which had nothing to do with the wrestlers themselves. So I have to thank him for so much because, you know, he truly reignited my love of wrestling. And, you know, that was kind of how we became a part of House of Hardcore because, you know, we're the double Duprees, myself and my daughter. And we come out together. We're mother-daughter wrestling ballet team. And, you know, we're the heels and we start some trouble and we do some stuff. But, you know, she's training to be a wrestler, so she's, you know, more physical. I do my thing, too, because, you know, part of it, you know, is athleticism. Part of it is, you know, entertaining. It's like, it's the perfect marriage for me of being, like, doing theater and wrestling. It's just everything rolled into one. So it's something that I would never get anywhere else. So I actually love being a valet, and I love being around the industry, especially when you have great guys like Tommy. He's the best person that you can have, you know, in your corner, in your ear, to tell you the do's and the don'ts. And, you know, it's whether you're going to listen or not. I've been truly blessed in my life to run into or have as family these great, genuine, humble men that are willing to teach you how to be better at what it is that you do. So I have to give it to them because if it wasn't for Tommy, I wouldn't be doing anything in the wrestling industry, and neither would my daughter. So I got to give it up to him for that.
Now, recently, in particular in WWE, and for those that watch TNA Wrestling, their women's division as well, but in particular, WWE has really rejuvenated the women's divas division. And, you know, Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, you know, on TV and behind the scenes have talked about how, you know, with the women's World Cup win, you know, Ronda Rousey, things like that,
right.
Women are becoming such stronger characters. And that's very similar to the horror industry where women are becoming more, you know, more directors, more producers, bigger
right.
roles. You know, kind of talk about how you feel pro wrestling has changed the way that women entertainers are now being presented on TV, because now it's no longer just, you know, to go back to the Attitude Era and Eric Bischoff, you know, the hot lesbian action and, you know, bikini contests. Now it's actual physical wrestling, and it's good wrestling. You know, kind of talk about those opportunities and how that parallels to, you know, women that work in the movie and the horror genre.
You just said a whole lot.
Yeah, sorry. I get rolling.
Well, yeah, you really do. Well, I can say that I definitely, me and my daughter have talked about this time and time again because, you know, for a long time we didn't like basically when the women or the divas or the knockouts came out to wrestle, people thought that was the time to get up for a bathroom break or, you know, I got to go get something to eat because, the women are on. You know, I feel like that's rapidly changing because they're actually, it's not that they didn't have this talent to show in the first place. I feel like it was that they didn't have the opportunity in which to showcase it. So now they're getting more of an opportunity, and they are putting on some hell of some matches, boy. We were watching Raw in Poughkeepsie last night. Tommy Dreamer made a special appearance there, and he watched Raw with everyone. And, you know, we had a blast, watching the women wrestle. I always used to get a kick out of watching any woman come out for wrestling, even if they weren't actually wrestling, back to Miss Elizabeth and whatnot, just because I felt like I was being represented. But now you see these women come out and they're strong, and they can show you that they can kick ass just like the guys. So I'm really enjoying that. I just hope that it continues, because I don't know. I mean, I'm just starting to see it, but I'm not convinced yet. I need to see it some more. I do applaud that it's happening, and especially on the indie circuit, it's been going on for a while on the indie circuit. So I hope that it continues more on television. But you're right, even in the horror genre, you're starting to see, more strong women. We used to joke all the time, that there's always these trip and fall women. They trip and fall and they get killed. So it's like, oh, she's the resident trip, fall, and die, and all the rest of the women are gonna die, and then it's just this guy. But you're starting to see all of that change, just all across the world in sport and everything you see. You're seeing more women stand up, stand tall, and be strong. Like you said, even Ronda Rousey. I mean, this is just a great time for us as women right now. I feel like, we've always been able to do anything we put our minds to, but we weren't always afforded the opportunities to show that we can do that. In this day today, we can show that we can do anything. We can do any sport. We can do it all. We can be mothers and still go and, do anything. I mean, I'm a prime example, and I'm not even out there like on TV all the time. But, I was told that if I had any children, I wouldn't be able to pursue my career as an actress. Now, I have 10 children, and I'm still pursuing my career as an actress. I'm wrestling. I'm very much, into fitness. I'm doing a lot of photo shoots. I'm producing and directing, which takes a lot of your time, like a whole lot of your time. So I feel like, we can show you better than we can tell you. And I think I'm very proud of women in general for being able to actually show what it is that we can do. Not to sound any kind of way. It's just that, I'm a woman. And, a lot of the times earlier on as a teenager and whatnot, there was a lot of things that I wasn't able to do because I wasn't afforded the opportunity. Now it's different. So for my daughters coming up, they have a better chance at doing something sooner than I did. And that's what I'm really, really proud of and happy about.
Now, talking about that, you are certainly considered a scream queen. You're considered one of the pinnacle in your industry, especially at what you do. Once you started watching horror films and you saw how women were portrayed, there were certain women who certainly were highlights of the industry. We could talk about women like Barbara Steele. We could talk about Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
Who was that scream queen to you that exhibited the qualities that you felt were, I don't know if appropriate's the word I want to use, but exemplified what a strong woman should be in a horror film?
Well, you did hit one. I'd always looked up to Jamie Lee Curtis. Mm-hmm. For a multitude of reasons. I just, she, to me, was like the scream queen. But even more so than her, as I started to get into independent horror, which I didn't even know that there was a difference for a long time. Like, there was a lot of films that I couldn't see because I didn't even know that they existed. But Debbie Rochon has to be one of those people who stand out to me, you know, that shows me, you know, on camera and off, you know, exemplified the type of woman I wanted to be in this industry, you know, in front of the camera, behind the camera, just Debbie Rochon. I don't know Jamie Lee Curtis, but, you know, for what I've seen, like, you know, watching her work and things of that nature, but Debbie Rochon would be it for me. That's where it really, truly started, and I was like, I need to get advice from this woman. I'm the advice queen. If I really admire how you do something and what you're doing, I want some advice. I want to learn, because I always want to learn. So Debbie was who I went to, you know, and still every now and again, you know, there's something going on, I go to her, you know, and she, you know, welcomes the questions with open arms, and it's and there's still people that when they go, I don't know who Debbie Rochon is. I'm like, are you serious now? I need you to go to IMDb and look at her 50,000 films that she's been in and just pick one and watch it.
Oh, I agree. I've had Debbie on the podcast. I interviewed her for Living Dead magazine. I'm getting ready to interview her again for Horse Society. You know, I definitely agree. If there was a Mount Rushmore of Scream Queens, her face would certainly be up there. There's no two ways about that.
It had better be up there, or I'm going to have an issue with somebody. But yeah, Debbie's always been it for me. But it was definitely Jamie Lee Curtis and Debbie. But I do have to say that not in the horror genre, but just being like a strong woman, I always looked up to Pam Grier.
Oh yeah.
And she's one of those people. I said, I want a career like hers, you know, from the black exploitation films, you know, all the way to, you know, she's started her career back up again, and the woman is beautiful. She's still talented. You know,
oh, yeah.
I just love all that is Pam Grier. And, you know, I was very taken aback at one point when somebody said, I feel like you're, you know, the modern day Pam Grier. And I said, I'm definitely not worthy of that. I think that we have a lot of similar, you know, when she was younger, a lot of the pictures that she took, you know, from her films and photo shoots centered around it, you know, with the topless and the tasteful nudes and stuff like that. I do that because I don't feel like there's an issue with showing your body. A lot of people tell me I'm a horrible role model for doing so. And one of the first things I say is, well, I guess Pam Grier is a horrible role model as well. I'm not trying to be a role model, as, you know, that may sound bad, but I'm just trying to do what I love and be true to myself at the same time. And that's all I'm doing. My children can look at me, you know, and say, what you're doing is beautiful, my family. So I don't have any issues with, you know, with anybody else. And I often wondered if Pam Grier went through that and want to ask her one day, but I always miss her at conventions. So I always wanted her advice on that, because sometimes it's kind of too heavy for me to deal with, because I get bashed a lot. Like, oh, you're doing topless shoots, or you're doing nude shoots, or, you know, it bothers me. Or, you know, like, you don't have to get naked in a movie. And it's not that I do, it's that, you know, if there's a role that calls for some type of nudity, it depends on the project. I just won't say I just accept whatever, you know, because it's still like, I care about the character and I care about what I'm doing. So it's not, okay, just pay me and I'm going to do whatever you want to do. So, but I fight with that a lot, because I get called out as like somebody with no morals, and I should be ashamed of myself because I have so many girls and I'm doing this.
You know, and I think that brings up an interesting aspect. I like to ask this to people on the show a lot. You know, if you look at movies that we watched growing up and movies that experienced that, you know, gave us the experiences that we had, you know, that influenced us, especially in the horror genre, do you think that things have just become too PC these days, and that people have just forgotten that sometimes art is art?
I definitely feel like everything is PC. It's like I don't really understand what happened, but people can't separate a lot of the times, art from anything else. It's like, well, this is not art. This is nasty, and I come from a place. Not everybody comes from this place, but I come from a place where I feel like the body is beautiful. We're supposed to embrace ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're supposed to be laying there with our legs wide open taking shots. But being naked is a beautiful thing. That's how I was born. I don't know if anybody was born with clothes, but I most certainly was not. But I really feel like everything is way too PC today, and I don't raise my children that way because that's the only thing that I can contribute is having 10 children that are like firecrackers. Then so be it, because I don't believe that things should be all PC like it is. Everybody's so touchy about everything. You can't even spank your children if they do something like way out of line without somebody saying that, oh, well, you're abusing that child. I gotta call this person and I gotta call that person. We've gone way overboard, and that is personally, I know it's off topic, but I just have to say it. That's personally, in my opinion, one of the reasons why we have so many disrespectful children out there is because their parents are afraid to do anything disciplinarian for fear of getting in trouble.
You believe me, I'm on the same page as you. I feel exactly the same way you do about it.
Yeah, it's
and I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I never had to. I think I spanked her once when she was little, but she understands. There's a certain way you talk to adults. There's a certain way that you act in public, and if you act a fool, there's consequences for it.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not saying, well, you have to beat your kids, but, to me, that's like saying that my grandmother and my great-grandmother abused me because they would tell me to get a switch off the tree if I said something in a disrespectful manner to a neighbor or something to that effect, and that neighbor took me by my ear, brought me to my family, and told them what happened, because it takes a village to raise a child as well. So, that's like saying that I was abused, which I was not abused. I have, I have respect for my elders. I have respect for myself. I learned that being raised how I was raised. So when you talk about PC, I go all over the place, but I think that things are way too PC all across the board. Like, it really aggravates the hell out of me. So you hit a button right there.
We're on the same page there, Monique. There's no arguments there whatsoever. Now, you have so many film titles to your credit. There are so many movies that we could touch on and highlight. IMDb personally, or specifically lists 56 credits to your name.
Right.
But when you did your acting, at what film was it that you did where it suddenly hit you that you have arrived? I don't feel like
I've done a project yet where I feel like I have arrived. Seriously. I know that I will say when I did Bachelor Party in the Bungalow of the Dam,
love that movie.
Which is a mouthful, I came in as a fill-in because I actually got that job from Craigslist. That doesn't mean go out there on Craigslist, people, and look for stuff because, there's killers and bad stuff there. But I happened to have taken a chance and saw that they were looking for an actress ASAP because whatever happened, what happens, actresses, people, they back out. So I called in and I sent all my information in and I got the gig. and went, and it was just supposed to be a small role, and it turned into something bigger, and it turned into the best makeup effects experience I've ever had in my life, because I sat there for 10 hours getting that makeup done, and it was done by Wicked Effects, who are just absolutely amazing. They're one of the best effects people that I worked with, Bioduct Effects being the second. And it was like, wow, I've hit something here. Like that was the time that I realized that I love having makeup effects done on me. Like some people, they can't sit there for long and get that stuff done. I can sit there for as long as you need me to, however many days, day in, day out, just to create the character or the role that I have to create, or the person or the being or the creature I have to become. I love that stuff. And I realized that on the set then. And I'm fortunate to say that Wicked Effects have pulled me into several jobs after that, where, it still required lots of makeup effects, where they had to do a cast of my entire head, and, I sat there and got that done. I love that stuff. If somebody needs somebody for that and they can't find anybody, they need to call me, because I love it. I can sit there for as long as it takes.
See, I love to hear that, because that's how I got my start in the industry, was as a special effects artist. And yeah, there are people that are squirrely and can't sit in a chair for 10 minutes, and it's nice to hear that part of it doesn't bother you. It's actually entertaining to hear that.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, because while I'm not going to say I don't have experience with doing that stuff myself, but I like watching as I'm becoming, watching the people around me work. Like, for Wicked Effects, I had 3 people working on me at once. One person was working on my breasts because they had teeth, and, another person was working on my face, and then people were drawing veins and all over the top part of my body, and I got to watch all of that. Now, I'm not going to say it was comfortable, because for me to eat, I had to put the straw through my nose hole to push down into my mouth to eat. But it was well worth the drinking my food for, 10 hours or so in order to do that. I love that. And so while I didn't feel like, I have arrived when I did that, I felt like I found something, a special talent of mine, because they considered it to be a talent. They said, people don't sit here on average for this long getting makeup effects done. You're an anomaly in that. And so I said, well, I found something that I actually love, and I'm very patient at, and then I can become the character at the same time. I wish I can get more gigs like this. Like, I wish that I can get, like The Strain. I sit there when I watch The Strain and I go, I wonder how long he had to sit there to get that makeup on. And I would love to be a part of this show just so I can get made up and become, I don't know how many people think like that, but that's how I think. That's where I am. So when I'm doing a horror film, it's a plus if I'm getting made up, and I've even taken, pay cuts to do a role that fits that for me, because I love it so much.
Now, you've worked with a guy, and I'm hoping to do an interview with him for the next issue of Living Dead magazine. You've had the opportunity to be in films and work with Lloyd Kaufman a couple of times of Trauma.
Yes.
Kind of talk about, I always ask people that work with Lloyd, because the stories are always amazing. Kind of tell us about your experiences with Lloyd and what he's like as a person. Of course, there's the public persona that you see, but, what is Lloyd like behind the scenes?
Well, he's just as bubbly. He's a great guy, first of all. He and Debbie Rochon are, two of the reasons why I was able to even do anything in the genre in the first place, because I lost the contest on Fangoria Radio. It was a Scream Queen contest, and I lost the contest, but Lloyd was very much interested in working with me and said, if you reach out to me, I'll have some stuff for you. And lo and behold, I reached out to him, and he had some stuff for me. So he started me out with some intros to some movies. Like, the first thing I did with him was an intro to Pot Zombies.
Yep.
And is there cursing allowed on this show?
You can say whatever you want. This is my show. You say what you want.
Okay, I'm just asking because, of the story. So I had never worked with him. I just knew that he was, had like a pretty wild personality from the times that I had met him and then being on Fangoria Radio and whatnot. So, we're working on the script, and I'm very nervous because I'm working alongside him and another woman, and it's just the three of us doing this intro. So I said, well, I'm working next to a veteran. I have no idea how I'm supposed to behave, so I was very nervous. I was very much into reading the script and making sure I got everything right, which is what he did not want, because he could tell that I was trying to remember stuff. So he finally, after a few takes, he came up to me and he took the script and he threw it down and he said, don't worry about the script. I just want you to call me every cocksucking motherfucking whatever you could think of. Just hit me with it. Just hit it. Just give me energy and call me anything you could think of. And I was like, what the hell just happened in my life right now? Like, I had no idea. It just threw me off, but it actually, he broke that nervousness. And then I was, but that it almost didn't work because it almost made me even more nervous. But I said, okay, this guy obviously knows what he's doing. I don't know whether he actually wants me to do that or whether he just wants me to loosen up, but I'm just going to stop thinking about it and just do it. And, that's what I did. And, the intro came out really funny. He wanted me to be over the top, bimbo-ish, bubbly. And, that's what I did. So that was like my first experience actually working with him. And he also agreed to be in my comic book, Cat o' Nine Tails. So I'm very excited about that, him being a part of it.
Another film that I wanted to ask you about, because I've talked to Jonathan Moody before, and you always hear a lot about it, but, it seemed like it was delayed. Kind of tell us about your involvement in Scream Queen Campfire.
Well, you pretty much said everything. I'm very excited about doing that project. However, there has been delays or whatever was going on. I'm not sure about everything in detail of what's going on with Moody, because I know sometimes, when people are doing, I know from my own project that sometimes when you're putting together a project, this may not happen right, that may not happen. Somebody says they're going to do something they don't do. A lot of that happens. So for whatever the reason, we had a delay on it. But I'm really excited about, doing that project because, it's Scream Queen Campfire. So I'm really hoping that, everything is greenlit soon so that we can go forward with that, because it's one of those things that I've been anxiously awaiting. But now, you probably know just about as much as I do.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was any further update. I talk to Jonathan every now and then, and I bugged the shit out of him about that title whenever I talk to him. So I was just, if I hear anything, I'll let you know.
That he's still pushing forward with everything. That much I do know, but I try not to crowd people when they're trying to, get things done, because I learned from the other end of it. I know how it is.
Now, talking about the other end of it, you've done so much as an actress, modeling, the pro wrestling and everything, but you've taken on a couple of other hats now in the industry, one of them being producer, and you have a ton of stuff for this year that you're producing. How is it different for you when you look at things from behind the camera as opposed to being in front of it?
Well, when I'm in front of the camera, I don't want to strangle everybody. However, when I'm behind the camera, I feel like that's where the gray hairs come in. Because because there's different levels of producing. And when I first started, like, doing, production or whatever, I was like, okay, well, I'll contribute some money to some stuff and, do a producer's credit or whatever. Then I actually started producing. Boy, there's a big difference there.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of little things that as an actress being in front of the camera, you just don't realize has to happen, before, during, and after a production of a short, a movie, whatever it is that you're doing. So I will say that I got a crash course education on production, and one of the people that I learned from, I feel like one of the best, especially in the independent industry, I learned from was John Johnson. And here we go talking about talented men again, who I've been blessed enough to come across in my life, who has helped me tremendously, because I work with John Johnson all the time. And, John Johnson is responsible for such titles as Skeleton Key 1,
Yep.
2, and 3. And then we just did another Skeleton Key, and he did the remake of Plan 9, which I was also in. He has, I believe, about 100 films that he's done himself. And he started giving me a crash course in production because I had started producing on some of his projects. And he showed me what real producing looked like. And it gave me a headache. And I was very nauseous, and I wanted to strangle everybody. But at the same time, I loved it because I was learning something new. And as much as I just said all of that stuff, I would do it again, just because it's different, and just because I don't like it at first, doesn't mean I'm not going to continue doing it, because I feel like I'm good at it. However, it just puts me in a mood that if I don't have coffee, I'm going to strangle somebody. It's a lot of tedious work, but I will say that I feel like in the future, hopefully the very near future, I will be doing some more producing of some projects, hopefully not just my own, but in the meantime, I'll probably, hone my skills with my own projects.
Well, and speaking of that, because of course I've had a little bit of work on the production end as well, and that always leads to directing. And you have 2 projects for directing. You have Shadowhunters, Devilspeak, and Urban Legends to Die For. Kind of talk about the challenges you see forthcoming as a director. Well,
I'm definitely nervous about Urban Legends just because, it's going to be me stepping out of a comfort zone. And, I say that because, again, directing Shadowhunters Devilspeak was like directing family because, I went back to Darkstone. I hired Darkstone people, so it was a little bit easier, a lot easier for me to be able to manage that. And John was, an amazing help because, directing is like breathing for him. And, of course, Tommy Dreamer was in it as well. So the parts that, I had to do when I had to play, my character, John helped me to direct because, that was the first time everything. You're in the movie, you're producing the movie, and then you have to direct it. I was losing my mind. But, again, it's another thing that's a learning experience putting this whole film project together, and it's just a short. I can't even imagine doing a feature. But, you know, we still have to do the commentary. We're going to do commentary for it. And, you know, just laying down, you know, the DVD, the stuff in DVD, the menu, and, you know, the picking of the music, and holy crap. I just didn't know, you know, between directing and producing how much, you know, you have to do. And I just really thought that directing was just, this was earlier on. This wasn't in my adult life, but I used to think that directing was like you put a camera in front of some people and you go, and action, and they do stuff. And then you say,
right.
cut. And that's it. And, you know, but I never thought about how do you make sure you have all your takes, like you know where to go to for what takes, and how do you account for all of this footage? Like all of these little details I just had no idea of, you know, shot list. I learned so much. And again, learning it with family is different. So I feel like when I do urban legends, I'm going to kind of be stepping out of my comfort zone unless I do something else before then. So I'm really quite nervous about it. However, I think that if I shake my nerves a bit, that I could do a pretty decent job. It's going to be a learning experience, though.
Well, we have about 4 minutes left, so let me touch on some of this new stuff that you have. No less than 9 films as an actress slated on IMDb for this year. Of course, you mentioned Plan 9.
Yes.
There's Caesar and Otto's Paranormal Halloween. Of course, Urban
That's
Legends
actually
and
done.
Shadowhunters.
Yes.
Okay. The two that are at the top of the list, I wanted to ask you about real quick. What can you tell us about Sex, Blood, and Fairytales, and a little bit about Rednecks, if you can, since you're the pool wrestling girl at Rednecks.
Yes, Rednecks. I actually finished my part already. I don't know if he's still filming or what. That was a crazy but really cool experience. It's like a comedy, so it's very silly, very funny, but I did get to do a little wrestling move in a swimming pool, so I felt like my worlds were colliding, and that was really cool. Sex, Blood, and Fairytales is a project done by my beautiful friend Yelena Sabel, and she's an award-winning director already, so I'm hoping that I'm able to do my parts really soon so that we can the film in the can and whatnot. But, you know, she also wanted my daughter, Liberty Dupree, to be in the project as well. So I'm crossing my fingers that, you know, we get that done soon. You know, with independent stuff, we have to take it as we can get it, you know, when we can do stuff. I also wanted to say really quickly, which I know this doesn't relate to your question, but for you wrestling fans, please go out and get House of Hardcore 9. That just happened in Toronto. It's now available on Blu-ray, digital download as well. And you can go to www.houseofhardcore.net if you're interested in any of the previous House of Hardcores. And if you actually like to see me work in this field, you can get any of the House of Hardcores with the exception of one. But you would want to get one because Edge was in it. So just get the whole collection of HOH to show your support and your love for wrestling.
Definitely. You know, Monique, I want to thank you so much for being on. I'm glad you were able to come on and talk about all of your work. I definitely feel like you're one of the top influences and somebody that young actresses should be watching if they're looking to break into the industry. Before you go, if you could impart any knowledge on young actresses wanting to break in, what would you tell them?
Don't be afraid to work hard. Learn your craft. Don't be a diva. I've seen a lot of, you know, new actresses come in. They've done a couple of projects, and then all of a sudden their head is really big. Stay humble. stay humble no matter how big you get. You don't even understand how much, that helps. But, you have to get through 1,000 no's sometimes before you get that one yes. So I also want to say never get discouraged. And don't ever listen to somebody that tell you that you can't do something because of something. You can do anything that you put your mind to. But, it's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of pushing, a lot of rejection. Don't ever let that stop you from what you want.
Oh, and I have to ask, just so the fans know, real quick, where did the original Gata come from?
That's funny. It's the original Gata is it's actually Spanish for cat, Gata. So I was actually called that by a fan of mine a long time ago. Not the original Gata, but just simply Gata. There's been some issues with another Gata or whatever the case might be. So she's her name. I'm the original Gata, and I have a love of cats. So I have like 13 or 14 cat tattoos on my body. I am a cat. So instead of just saying like cat or the original cat, because my nickname used to be Cat, which is why my fan had called me Gata.
Gotcha.
That's actually where that name originated from, and it really stuck because again, I love cats, and so it just became the original Gata, and then my comic book got named after that, and I feel like it's my alter ego, like Beyonce has Sasha, I have Gata. So it's like I'm two different personalities. Gata is the wild child, and Monique Dupree is more like the mom.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Monique, again, thank you so much for coming on. I wish you success. You know that you're always welcome on the show. If you have any news about any of your films, you can contact me. I'll get it up on Horror Society. In the future, I would love to do a piece with you for Living Dead magazine as well. I want to give your daughter all the luck in the world for her wrestling as well. And
thank you very much.
I'm trying to get Tommy Dreamer on the show. I would love to talk to Tommy, and if I get Tommy on the show, I want you to come on with Tommy because I think that would be an amazing show as well.
I will talk to him about that ASAP.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Monique. And if, anytime you want to come on or have something you want to talk about, you just let me know, and you're always welcome.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was the original Gata, Scream Queen Monique Dupree. Make sure to check out all the House of Hardcore. Make sure to check out her directorial debuts. Again, I really honestly think that if you're looking to break into industry as a female, hell, even as a male, this is a woman that you can learn a lot from. Like she said, don't ever give up. It could take 1,000 no's before you get that yes, but she is the perfect example of what someone with great drive and determination can do in this industry. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to go into our final digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening when we cover Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Ghost Town. But before that, we're going to do our final digital dismemberment spotlight not digital dismemberment, We're going to do our final Metal Blade spotlight for the evening. Once again, with World Podcast exclusive music. The name of the band is Cattle Decapitation. The CD is The Anthropocene Extinction. The name of the song is Pacific Grim.
wir für andere tun, verbleibt und ist unsterblich.
And once again, world podcast exclusive music from Cattle Decapitation. The new CD is called The Anthropocene Extinction. The name of that song was Pacific Grim. Make sure to head on over to Metal Blade Records. Pick up the new CD. Pick up the band merchandise. Find out when Cattle Decapitation is going on tour. You can pick up all of your metal needs at metalbladerecords.com or metalblade.com. We always thank them for sending us such fantastic metal music to listen to while we do our show. But also wanted to say, make sure to pick up the latest edition of Living Dead magazine. This last issue in particular was a women in horror, a women in horror episode, to be perfectly honest with you. Celebrate some of the most talented women in horror who have helped pave the way for females in horror today. The issue features interviews with Elvira Brink-Stevens, the Soska twins, Adrienne King, my interview with Debbie Rochon. There's also Terry McMinn, and so much more. It is a star-packed issue that you don't want to miss. So head on over to livingdeadmagazine.com and pick up issue number 7 of Living Dead magazine. And don't forget the Living Dead Con coming up in November out in Portland, Oregon. The Dead Man will be there representing not only Living Dead magazine, but Horror Society. Make sure to head on over and get involved. There's going to be a lot of good stuff there. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time once again for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our second digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we are covering Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Ghost Town. The good, the bad, the satanic. Scream Factory proudly presents the Empire Pictures classic Ghost Town on July 28, 2015 for its Blu-ray debut. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Charles Band production. It's kind of surprising when you see, maybe not surprising, but it was a nice surprise to see who was in this film. John Carl Buechler did the makeup and special effects, and let us not forget that if you pay close enough attention, the stunt coordinator for the film was one Kane Hodder. And it almost catches you by surprise when you see it. I almost didn't recognize him, and, being a big Friday the 13th fan and everything, it was just, wow, that's him. So that part of it was pretty cool. A little bit more about the film. A dusty ghost town, seemingly abandoned, holds the lives of its original inhabitants in an animated netherworld for 100 years. When a modern-day sheriff's deputy is lured to a desolate, spooky ghost town in search of a missing woman, he comes face-to-face with a malevolent spirit from the town's past. The spell of death and suffering over the undead townspeople must end to set them free from eternal pain. The horrors of a possessed outlaw in a time-suspended dimension are only the setting for a frightening battle for the mind, nerves, and flesh. Starring Frank Luth from The Nest and When Harry Met Sally, Jimmy F. Skaggs from Oblivion and Puppet Master, Catherine Hicklin from Witchery, and Bruce Glover from Diamonds Are Forever, Chinatown, and Walking Tall, Ghost Town is an unnerving white-knuckle walk into the wild, undead West. It definitely an interesting film. I'm still would be considered a lower-budget film, but when you watch it, you can definitely tell that maybe Charles had a little bit more money for this one. I don't know. A very nice visual appeal. You get to see, the Wild West with a little bit of ghostly, satanic, monstrous elements to it. But I thought it was an extremely well done view. It's not a movie that goes slowly. It packs everything in. Excuse me. The film is enjoyable to watch. And what it is, you meet a young deputy by the name of Langley. And Langley is looking into the disappearance of a young lady named Kate who was driving down a road in the West, and it's almost like she hears horses, and she gets out of her car, and you see something coming at her from her point of view, and she's basically dragged off. Langley's out doing target practice out in the desert, shooting bottles and windows and things like that, and he gets a call from the sheriff to find out what happened to Kate. So he goes out to investigate, and while he's driving, he sees a figure on horseback, and the person draws on him and shoots twice at his windshield. Well, he jumps out of the car. The car eventually mysteriously bursts into flames, and he wanders off following the horse prints in the sand to follow this guy. Well, he winds up stumbling across a tombstone buried out in the desert, and a corpse basically comes up out of the ground and grabs him, and it turns out that it was a sheriff from this old abandoned town. And it basically pleads with him to destroy the evil in his town. Well, the further Langley goes out into the desert, he finds this town. And he sees people appearing and disappearing. He doesn't quite put together yet that it's a ghost town that's haunted by an evil man by the name of Devlin. And as he meets the different people through the town, mysterious things happen. In fact, he meets a very beautiful young lady in the barn after he has an experience with two of Devlin's men, and he winds up shooting both of them, and he winds up being grazed by a bullet. He comes to, and the young lady hands him an old gun, and he basically has a small romantic relationship with her. And he starts to find out more and more about Devlin. Well, once Devlin's name is said by the young lady, the ghosts start to become more and more prevalent. He goes to the local bar and runs into him, and that's where he runs into Kate, where Devlin is holding her hostage, and she looks like someone from the town's past who was a singer that Devlin had a relationship with. To his surprise, the two men that he had the original gunfight with are there, bloodied, but basically undamaged. As time goes on, he basically challenges Devlin, and in the initial gunfight, he hits Devlin every time, but does no damage. After getting into a fight with his posse, he escapes and goes back to the bar, and the bartender hands him the old gun back and tells him that he has to use things from this time period and not his time period. He eventually breaks Kate out, and they hole up in a church. In revenge, Devlin goes and kills the young lady and the blacksmith that sheltered him in the beginning. They make it to the church, and he starts to make bullets from the coins in the old collection box. And he finds when he uses the bullets and the guns from that time period, he can actually damage and hurt the ghosts. In fact, when he shoots one of them, it bursts into flames. Well, Devlin gets angry and finds out that someone from the town told him what he needed to do to fight him, and he winds up killing the bartender and the blind card dealer rather graphically with a straight razor. There winds up being a final gun battle, and Devlin winds up being killed when the sheriff throws the sheriff's badge from that time period and hits him in the head. The ghost town disappears, and the spirits of the townsfolk are finally free from the evil curse that Devlin had placed upon it. Again, when you watch the film, you don't get the idea that it had the same budget limitations of some of Band's earlier films. It's a very slickly made film. I thought the makeup and effects were quite good, especially some of the gunshots, very bloody and very graphic, a little bit more than what you would probably expect from a film like this. I enjoy seeing set pieces, especially ones that are set in the Old West like this. I feel like it's something we don't see enough of. No CG in this one, so again, you definitely get more of a realistic feel for this, and I feel like it's really worth checking out. Now, this is one of Scream Factory's budget titles, so there are no special features on this. Kind of sad. It would have been kind of cool to see an interview with Charles Band and maybe some of the actors and actresses. I think an interview with Bugler for the special effects would have been absolutely outstanding to see on this, and it would have been even funny to get a few words from Kane Hodder, especially since he plays one of the lackeys as well in the posse that Devlin controls. Overall, I would give this movie a 3 out of 5 stars. Again, it's entertaining. It's definitely captivating. It doesn't drag along. The action belts along nicely. I think the narrative is well told. There's a good story there. So there's entertainment to be had by everyone. Again, lack of special features, but again, with it being a budget title, it's kind of hard to hold that against the film. Overall, with the packaging and it does have a flip cover because, there was the original artwork and then there was the one that Scream Factory commissions for it. The film looks sharp. The sound quality is sharp. So there's a lot to like about this film and everything on it, especially if you like lower budgeted horror films, horror Western films. I would give the disc an overall about a 6.5. 7 out of 10. Again, it would have been nice to see a few small special features included with this. So make sure to head on over to Shout and Scream Factory to pick up your copy of Charles Band's Ghost Town on Blu-ray. Well, it's been another fantastic evening here on the Calling Hours Horror Podcast. I want to say thank you to our friends at Scream Factory for sending along our Blu-ray copy of Ghost Town. I want to say thank you to our friends at Lionsgate Entertainment for High Tension on Blu-ray. Thank you to our friends out at Metal Blade Records for tonight's Metal Blade Spotlight, Cattle Decapitation, the new CD, The Anthropocene Extinction. Make sure to head on over and get a copy of that. Don't forget to pick up your copy of issue number 7 of Living Dead magazine, and issue 8 will be out soon. Look for DVD reviews and more by me over at HorrorSociety.com. And until next... Oh, no, I can't go away without saying this. And once again, I want to say thank you to our guest this evening, the original Gata, Scream Queen Monique Dupree, for coming onto the show and talking about her amazing catalog of work and everything that she is getting ready to do here in the near future. And it's always nice to talk pro wrestling with another pro wrestling fan. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Dead Man, Michael Jones from HorrorSociety.com and Living Dead magazine, telling you all to rest in peace.